I realized that what I did for a living was not just photography. Photography was a tool to get me to a place where I can impact them in a different way.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Edit with your photo BFFs. I'm Amanda from Seattle.
I'm Erin from Nashville.
And I'm Whitney from Minneapolis.
And whether you're starting fresh or starting over in your photography business, we're here to support you where you are. And today we are super excited to have a guest on. Before we introduce him, I wanted to say real quick that speaking of, we talk a lot about being working parents, and Erin may have to leave a little early today to go pick up one of her kiddos, but she didn't want to miss this amazing interview with Shaun Gordon of Kiss Books. I'm like, big super fan. I am so excited. Erin and Whitney were like, you have to host this because you are like a Kiss fangirl. So, Shaun, thank you so much for agreeing to come on today and letting me meet the person who has started Kiss.
Thanks so much for having me. It is an honor. And I was just talking to somebody about this earlier. It's like I fan over certain people as well. And then I've gone into these big interviews or conversations, and I'm nervous. And my wife's like, they're just human. Like, just get in there and be human. And because everyone has their thing, whether it's like picking up kids or dealing with life, it's just like, doesn't matter what level you get to and what you're doing. We are all just humans.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Very true.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to know, obviously Kiss is huge. The albums that Kiss creates are just beautiful. Like, I was just dumbfounded when I had one in my hands, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is now my album company. I am all about this. But you didn't start out. Kiss wasn't your first baby. So I want to know a little bit about your path to the photography industry.
Yeah, so at the time I was running a printing press. I was working a job. I started there in shipping. It's kind of a funny story. I interviewed for the driver position, and then they found out that I had a lot of points on my record, and they couldn't insure me. But the interview went so well, they're like, can you just be in shipping? And so I was like, sweet. So I got a job in shipping, and then I got my brother the job as a driver. Both of us worked our way up. I went into printing. He went into the creative side. So I started in printing. And when I lost my job doing that, it was because I had met my now wife. I was infatuated with her. We worked tons of hours, and I was like 21 years old. And I thought I had arrived by being a printing, pressman and all these things. And my wife asked me, girlfriend at the time, what do you want to do for a living? And I was like, I don't know. I've never really thought of that. My dad's an entrepreneur, and it was really just about showing up, working hard. That's one of the things I loved about my dad. I know he worked hard. He wasn't always there, and he had his stuff, but I know that I learned how to work hard from him, and with this intention to provide. And so I was like, nobody's ever asked me that. My friend Mike is a photographer, and that sounds cool. I'd love to photograph supercross and snowboarding. I was real drawn to extreme sports. And so I took him to lunch one day after church, and I said, I want to be a photographer, but I don't want to do weddings like you do. I want to do him and I snowboarded together, and we played baseball and stuff like that together. And he's like, Shaun, come shoot a wedding with me. I was like, wedding photographer. This is in the year 1999. In 1999, the photographer industry was just somebody that wore a fishing vest with film and lens caps and all this stuff. And if you missed the kiss, it ended your career. And I just didn't want to be that.
Yeah.
But then I saw Mike, and Mike's this good looking dude that's married and just inspirational. So I was like, okay. So I photographed this wedding for him. That wedding ended up being published. It was beautiful. It was in Newport Beach, California. And after we got the film back, I went over to his apartment, and he's like, we need somebody like you in the industry. I know that you want to go do these extreme sports and stuff, but there's always going to be a 16-year-old kid that just wants to be in the magazine for free. And I know you're probably want a family in your future. It's hard to make it unless you know somebody in that world. So come photograph weddings. Let's just change this industry. And so I went into it. I shot my first wedding in the year 2000, and I photographed for the next 15 or 16 years. I photographed around 500 weddings. I got to a point where I was photographing over 60 weddings a year, because in Southern California, there's no real off season. And to live in Southern California, to live in Southern California, you need to shoot 60 weddings a year to be able to afford it.
I would have burnt out in 1 year. I would have been done after my first year.
Yeah. I definitely hit the burnout at different times. And, but I always loved it. Like there was days where I'd shoot Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And on Monday, I'm like sore and I'm like editing and I'm in this and I start to like get burnt out. And then the next weekend I'd have another wedding. By the time I get the camera in my hand, I was like, I love this so much. Being able to tell the story through a lens, especially a wedding. I was in love with it every time I showed up to a wedding, and it was 500 times. I definitely had a bad attitude heading there in traffic sometimes. The year I photographed 64 weddings one year and about 100 engagement shoots because I shot for other studios as well. And I was like, God, don't ever let me take this for granted, because I photographed in like Laguna Beach every other day, basically every third day I was in Laguna, and that was my office. And to be able to watch the sunset with different people looking into their future, believing in each other and making these huge commitments to each other, I was like, how can I be a part of this forever? And that's when I started to transition, knowing I couldn't shoot 64 weddings every year and sometimes barely making it, even photographing all those weddings, trying to learn how to do pricing and all the things, the evolution of digital hit and all this stuff. I started to realize when I first put an album in one of my clients' lap, I realized that what I did for a living was not just photography. Photography was a tool to get me to a place where I could impact them in a different way. Mm-hmm. And that's where I started to put the album in their lap. And I'd say like, hey, I want to set a tradition in your family if you're up for it. Every year on your anniversary, will you look through this album? Pop a glass of your favorite and ask each other a couple questions like, what do you want to celebrate tonight that we did in our relationship? And what do you want to go and celebrate next year in our relationship? And I wanted to make an impact on, the like divorce rate, and relationships in general are hard. So like, what if I could do that 60 times a year? How many people could I impact? And then I started to think like, okay, I'm having a hard time ordering these albums. When we first started with KISS, it was like, it was so difficult to fax an order in and hope that it was correct. And you're spending a lot of money on this. And I'm like, I would fax it. And then I'd call like, did I do that right? And I was like, there has to be a different way. And that's where KISS really came into it. But my photo career was anything from starving artists all the way up to the end of my career. I was photographing 5 weddings a year for $25,000 a piece and selling them $20,000 and $30,000 in albums and print work. And I loved a lot of it, and I learned so much through it. But when it came down to it, even today, I'm in the business of relationships. I love serving and showing up and just walking people through the fears and all the things that come with owning a business and being a creative entrepreneur.
Wow, that's so cool. I always love hearing people's like origin stories. Like, where did you, how did you start and where were you at? So obviously then albums were a really big thing for you. And like you said, you thought there's got to be something different. So is that how the inspiration for KISS came up, or how did your career evolve into KISS?
Yeah, there was some stair steps. So I knew I couldn't photograph all the time. I was like looking on this website that still exists called Bizbin, B-I-Z, and it's just companies that are for sale. And so my dad was an entrepreneur, and I learned a lot from him, and was also just like, if one's already running and I can just buy it, then I can figure it out. And so I was looking at photo studios and always like in the creative world. And then this lab popped up, this lab that was in Southern California, and it had, what I found out, had 4 locations for sale. And so I ended up buying one. I got an investor and I bought one. And started to do local printing for North Orange County, a little town called Yorba Linda. And it's like a little bit older of a community. And so digital had hit. So whenever somebody came in, they were getting something, printed, but then they want to talk because they're like, what's going on with digital? It'll never be film. And I want to talk to the owner. And so it was like me at like 29 years old or so, and this like 70-year-old retired person trying to meet in the middle and talk about photography. And I loved it. And it was like, I also need to go to work. Like, I know you need somebody to talk to, but I got some work to do as well. So once we talk about the camera, can I go back to work? But I learned a lot through it. That evolved into, back in the day, it was like forums, what are now like Facebook groups and stuff. And so I was a part of a couple forums. I started talking about me printing. And then I bought a album binding machine. My wife thought I was nuts. And she's correct. Like, ultimately I'm a little bit crazy. And I was like, I can make albums, And so it was just somewhat automated, but you definitely had to hand build these books. So I started to make books for myself. I knew some other busy photographers, and I was on these forums, and that is what evolved. It ended up like within 6 months of me buying that machine, we had to move out of the camera store because we needed a manufacturing, not like a camera store. And so we moved down to, and we still did like a little bit of a brick and mortar because people wanted cameras from me, but they could buy it for cheaper at Costco than what I could buy it from Canon for, because they were buying in bulk. I was buying like 2 cameras. They were buying like 1,000. And so I did that for a little bit and just went full, and I was still photographing weddings. And so that is what became KISS. I had met my former business partner here in Indianapolis, where I moved to, and he was in marketing and creative and looking for something different. And we ended up going into business together and started KISS. And that was in 2007. 2007, we met at the end of the year. And in 2008, we went to WPPI. We could not get a booth. And there was too many booths at the time. Now you can get them like a dime a dozen. But we took a bunch of swag, like hats and hoodies and all this stuff. And KISS is simple was our tagline. We had one product, which was a square book, 3 sizes. We only did 8 by 10 by and 12 by at the time, 6 colors. And I look at those colors now and I'm like, why did we pick those 6? And or 5. One was black, and that made sense. The rest of them was like, I'm sorry if you have a KISS book from 2008. Lime green was one of the colors. I was like,
wow.
Boy.
Well, back then,
yes,
yeah,
and
exactly.
I remember that. I remember when you came on the market, and it was keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember because
I never said that. I said it's
Sweetheart.
a keep it simple system.
Okay.
And, but it was that. I mean, that was it.
Yeah, because I remember, and I was looking at the website again. And I'm like, there's none of that, which seems like that's a good move, I think, in a way. But also, it was like when you came on the market, I remember KISS books. I remember the lime color, but everyone was talking about it because it was so simple, just these few choices.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. And unfortunately, I am like opposite of simple. I like every option in the world, which is actually does not serve me well all the time. But they were gorgeous albums. And I mean, I absolutely remember you guys coming on the market. So it's fun hearing this side of the story from you.
Part of it was like we knew simple was going to shake it up, because if you go the other companies that I used at the time, even for my weddings, was like I didn't even know all the things that they offered because it was so vast, all the sizes and shapes and colors and duo. Like the spine was black and the rest of it was brown or red, and then the cameos, which is the photo in it, and debossing and spine debossing and fill in the blank. There were so many different things where I was like, I had already kind of made KISS out of that company before, because I was like, I can't offer all my clients all this stuff. I have 60 weddings a year. I'm not going to sit here with a briefcase full of swatches and just be like, which one do you want? Like, this is crazy. And it's crazy for them. Like, they just made, literally probably made 2,000 decisions for their wedding in the last year. And so then I bring out the here's all your stuff. And we've evolved a lot. And now this is it. This is everything that we carry. 2 paper types, all of our swatches, where literally some companies would send you a briefcase full of their stuff. Wow. And it was like, it's fun if you're designing a house. Like if you need to pick out your, cabinets and tile and all this stuff, but we're not. It's an album. And so people ate it up because it was not easy to order an album from other companies. And our tagline was, the world's simplest book company. And what we said a lot of times was there has to be a better way. So when we made the system, part of it was like, I don't know how to make a cameo and a cover. Like I'm the one building these books and I don't know how to do that. So we're not offering that. And they loved it. They're like, how do you put the name on the front? I was like, I don't know. Do I order a brand that you would brand a cow with and just I don't know. Yeah. So we're not doing that either. I don't want to, the cover it still is the most expensive part, and I'm not going to mess this up with a brand. If I mess it up, I'm now at a loss for this album that I'm selling, so we're not doing that either. And then, it's evolved, and we offer custom debossing and certain things. We realized that, that all the options weren't the issue. It was how to do them. So simplicity is like making something from chaos into a really efficient way of getting there. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I do a lot of my time. I'm regularly trying to make it as easy as possible still for a photographer to get from all these photos to an album. And with digital and the shoot and share and shoot and burn and shoot and whatever it was at the time has really caused a disservice, I believe, to our clients, because I love a phone and I can, we were talking about my daughter who's in Nashville. I can type in my phone her name and all the photos of her will pop up from the time she was little. And I love that. Technology is beautiful and I'm grateful for it. And there's nothing like she's coming into town and I can grab a photo shoot from 7 years ago and we can sit down and flip through a book. It's just a different feeling. Mm-hmm. 99% of people will never have a book written about them, but they've hired us as a photographer to document at least this chapter. And so in that chapter, I want you to be able to relive it in photographic form in an album, a wedding album, a family album, all the portrait stuff, senior, in high school, senior in college is becoming more of a thing, the boudoir world and all that stuff. There's like really cool chapters that we can have. Yet, am I going to look at it on a device? Yeah, I will. But it's different when you sit down on the couch and flip through it. When I miss my daughter, I can just grab an album and flip through it. And our brain, when it looks at a photo, it gets to a point where it's as if you were there. And so it's like, I remember her at that age and my brain goes on this fun little journey to when she was that age. And then I still miss her, but I'm like, I got a little moment with her. And that's what's wonderful about how the brain was made. So I just love what I get to do. And there's so much to it. And yet my goal is to still keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, which I love. And like you said, I totally agree with you. There's just something different when you have that tangible piece with your images on there. Like to me, there is nothing that beats that. Like I've got all my pictures here of my family behind me and my kids, like these are in our living room. Every single day, the kids go up and look at them and they talk about, oh, that's me as a baby. Oh, that's us. Oh, we had so much fun. Like every single day they do this. And it's so neat for them to see their faces up every day in our home. And that's one of the things I try to preach to my clients is this is what your family wants. Like you just spent all this money getting ready to have these photos taken to then just have them on your computer somewhere or, like you said, it's nice to have them on your phone. You can flip through, but there's nothing quite like having them printed and having them right there for you to see. And that's like, and I have tried out a bunch of different album companies, and for me, the printing quality of Kiss was just unlike any other. So phenomenal. Like looking at every single page, I was like, wow, this is like, you can't beat this. The printing quality is amazing. Everything just looks so good. So obviously people like heard this, they saw this, they wanted more. So at what point did you decide it was time to take it to the next level with Kiss and just kind of grow it even more?
I so wish I had this like inspirational story of like I went away into a cabin and I had my leather journal and I was writing, what do I want to do to impact the world? And it was like I ended up losing hair. I got alopecia 2 times because we went from like 0 to 1 million and in way too fast for me at the time. I wasn't prepared for it. I'm grateful for it. And it was rough. Like we went through a lot, and there's a lot of memes and things that say, success looks like you started here and you went here and there's a straight line. That's what we think it is. And there is not a squiggly enough line to say it's not like that. It was difficult. I was going through a lot personally. There was unresolved things from when I was a kid that I was still choosing to check out with. And it was all catching up around the time that we were growing this company. And so, like I said, I'm grateful that I learned how to work hard because that did help and it was needed. At least wanted by the industry. I even had to take a step back, or I chose to take a step back for a little while to work on things in my marriage and in my family and on me personally. And then when I came back, that was really more when I chose, like, I want to create more of an impact. Like when my feet hit the ground, any human, we have these like core values. The number one thing that the brain wants to do for us is to keep us alive, nutrition, and enough sleep and all those things. That's what its number one job is. And just underneath that, every human has a set of core values. It's to be seen, to be heard, and to know that what we're doing is making a difference or an impact. And so when my feet hit the ground, that's what I think of a lot of times. I'm grateful. I try and be grateful first. That's like one of my intentions is to like be committed to be grateful. And then I'm like, okay, why do we do what we do with KISS? And I happen to sell albums, but the impact that they can make with the stories that we tell with photography is wonderful. It's magical. It's not as magical as it once was because everybody has a camera that's pretty amazing in their pocket now. Mm-hmm. And yet it's still, we stop time. Like that's amazing. That will be magical forever. And then it's like, how do you want your clients to relive this? That's really what has been growing in me, is like when I talk to a photographer, and I do this like all day, Monday through Friday, I am on these calls and I love it. Like I get the chills all the time. I'm like, what is the impact that you want to make on your client's life? Because think about this, like any of you, like Erin, when you look at a photo of you in a group, what's the first thing that you look at?
Myself.
That's right. That's right. Everyone's going to do that.
Me out, but...
No, it's Erin. Erin, it's not just you. We all do that, and then we have a relationship with ourself, and we're looking for what's typically is like, what's wrong with me, or like, how do I look? Do I look good enough? Is that a good photo? Do I like, nowadays it's like people take pictures. Like, let me see it before you post it because I want to make sure that I don't, have 4 chins or something, and so the relationship that you have with yourself is something that I want to start to cause an impact on, because they're hiring us for this intimate thing. It doesn't have to be boudoir for it to be intimate. It could be any photo of us, because the relationship that we have with ourselves is typically one of the hardest ones, if not the hardest one for everybody. And I don't use a lot of everybody always typically, but it's like, it's rough to look in the mirror. And that's what a photograph is. So when Erin looks at herself in a group of people first, I want people to start to realize that no matter what, raw emotion is one of the most beautiful things that you can share with somebody else. Mm-hmm. We have this world where Instagram is like, it's the highs. It's the like, here's all the things that we've done and the vacations, and it's beautiful. They're curated photos. Yet the majority of life, a lot more of life than these super high highs, are the lows and the unexpected things that happen to us. That's where we get to know each other. And that is where we get to choose on who we want to be as we do this life. So when Erin sees a group photo and she sees herself, I want her to see like who she wants to be, like kind, loving, authentic, a good friend, not just like, how do I look in that outfit? And like, does my arm look, all the things that we've gotten in my career as a photographer. I was able to photograph like models for a season. And it was some of the hardest work, where I would take a photo and then I would show them, because usually I'm showing people a great photo of themselves. And then they would just break themselves down like, oh, can you take that? I need to. And I was like, you look amazing. This is what you do for a living. Yet we're so hard on ourselves. Yep. Like we have to be perfect. So right now, like my goal in growing and like serving photographers is showing them that they can have an impact. What we say, we want to be heard, we want to be seen, and we want to know we're making an impact. You can do all 3 of those things with photography for your clients by walking them through who they are as a person, not just what they look like in this photo. Because we take family photos and it's like, sure, you can see that you're maybe a mom, a business owner, a sister, a daughter. You've told me your titles. You have not told me anything about you. What do you want to be as a mom? Like, what type of mom do you want to be? What type of sister and daughter do you want to be? To where if we can start to, with our language, like walk our clients to that place, then if Erin was my client, I would want to speak life into her in a way that when she sees herself, she sees who she is, not just what she looks like. Both matter, but who you are is so much greater than what you do. Yet we're like, look at this accomplishment that I made, because it's so measurable. Look how much money I've made. Look at the type of car I drive and the vacations I take. That is part of who we are, but is one of the measurables. Who we are as we do those things matters so much more. And the relationship that we have with ourselves. One of my favorite things that's going around right now says, please heal so that the people around you don't have to also feel the pain that you have felt, because hurt people. And so it's like, I want people to heal so that when we look at a photo of ourselves, we're like, yeah, I'm going to show up today and become a better version of me. And I'm going to be kind. I'm not going to be necessarily more fit or more whatever, or wear the right clothes so I feel better about myself. Nothing wrong with those things ultimately, but that's not my only identity. And so that is kind of like my quest to take KISS to the next level, because I could shoot 60 weddings a year for X amount of years until I'm fully burnt out, right? But we have thousands of photographers that use us now. And if I can show them how to impact their clients, they'll get more referrals from it. People will talk about, people don't buy what you do, they buy how you make them feel. You're going to help them feel a certain way. And by doing that, your referrals are going to be out the door, a line out the door. And that's what I want. I want to see them succeed financially. I get that, but that's not my top priority. I want you to impact your clients in a way that that's what they remember. Like Amanda told me to look, when I look at a photo, to think about who I am, not just what I look like. And that has changed me. And you have to use Amanda as a photographer, that type of thing, versus I shot tons of weddings, right? And I don't know if I was ever referred because they're like, look at this photo Shaun took. It just doesn't happen. I hope that happened. Maybe it happened, but not nearly as much as we had so much fun, or Shaun caused this. I felt this way. And so that is why I feel there was a season where I was thinking about selling KISS, and I was kind of burnt out on some things and going through a thing with my former business partner and stuff. And I was my wife was even I got to a good place where I thought I could sell it. We can not work and all these things. I love work. She's like, I feel like you're kind of just getting into your groove. You love what you do and the stuff that you say. And at the end of the day, let's say there is God and judgment day, or whatever they call it. Whatever. I mean, Christians, I'm a Christian, but I hope that the conversation is this is what I made you to be, and this is how you showed up. And I hope that they're really close to each other, versus and then you retired and sold, and then you took up golf and you don't even love golf. I don't want to have to fill my time. At the end of the day, I can't stop talking about this with my wife, because I'm so excited for these photographers to have life in impact, not just become a better photographer and you'll make more money,
So what I'm wondering, let's see, we have someone listening to this today and they're just getting started, or they've been doing their business a few years. And I mean, I absolutely love what you're saying, and I absolutely agree. That is how we make people feel, to feel valued, and to be able to look at those photos and see that part of themselves. But practically, if you were to tell a photographer today that, been in a business a few years and they want to be able to have that with their clients, what would you say the first thing they should do is? Where would they start to be able to build that sort of business that has that sort of caring aspect?
It's a great question, Whitney, because a year ago, even somebody would ask me that, and I was like, let me show you. And here's the system. I need 90 minutes. And I would show them this, the timeline, the communication, the emails, nobody can do it. If Whitney and Amanda and Erin and Shaun all did this at the same time, we would have a similar system, but who we were in it, you would start to see, because you rewrite the emails and your essence and who you are. The personality is like a fingerprint. They're all different. And I would show them all that stuff. And then not a lot of people were able to do it, because I was basically turning a fire hose on and being like, here's all the things. And then they were like, oh my goodness, this is wild. Because it's a lot to offer albums. And so what I've done is I've started to do baby steps. What is the next thing that you can do? So step one, I'll share 3 steps so that you can kind of see, because there's different personality types. Some people are like, no, tell me more. And some people are like, that's enough. Step one is like just book. I've started to open my calendar to what I call a clarity call. And a clarity call is, where are you with albums and your impact and all these things, and where do you want to go? Let's roadmap it, but not do all the things. We're going to do the first few things. So by booking a call, it's one of these things that if you looked at my calendar, you'd be like, how are you on this podcast? And I love this as well. I could do podcasts all day. I love them. And, but like from 9 a.m. to about 10:30 at night, I will be working in this season so that I can have the weekend off with my daughter who's coming into town. But I do it and I go to bed like super energized and super tired, because those clarity calls, we end up talking about this. Like, cool, you're a good enough photographer. I know that. I spoke to someone this morning, in their first year, they did 38 photo shoots. And I was like, you're good enough. They're hiring you because you're good enough. But do you understand that they're also deciding whether or not they're worth the investment? That is that's our top priorities. Whenever we buy anything, whether it's like, if I go in to buy a Louis Vuitton bag, I believe I'm worth that investment to do that. Sure, there's status and stuff that comes with it. But so many times when somebody looks at a photographer, they know you're a good enough photographer. That is step one. Like, you look on Instagram, are they in the edit style and it's enough stuff in focus to where I would trust them to take my pictures? Then that becomes like, that is just a check mark. What is more important with that is like, how are they going to make me feel? And am I worth the investment in this is the top reason. It's not always consciously. Sometimes it's subconsciously that we make this decision. But I walk them through all of that on a clarity call of like, let's talk about money mindset is one of the hardest things. Everyone has a money hang up of some type. And sometimes it's like, I don't know if my clients can afford this. That's going to make me feel bad. If I make extra money, that means it has to come from somewhere. And now I'm responsible for that money. I don't know if I could be responsible. So there's all this stuff that goes on that we talk about in about an hour. And it's just a roadmap. A next step typically after that is like, post your proclamation, post what you're committed to now. Something along the lines of this. It's a picture of you with albums in your hand, or it's a picture that we provide on KISS. There's a dashboard where you can download some photos. Or the best one is your clients with a book in their hands saying, I'm committed to serving more, if not all of my clients with albums because, and then how Donna Miller says it in Story Brand, tell your story, make your clients the hero. So because I'm offering albums because, and this is a story that happens so much right now. My photographer didn't provide me with an album. And this is the photographer speaking. And I went and made an album for myself and I love it. It's so different than looking at it on a device that I don't want my clients to have the same feeling of like when they are going on their anniversary, they text me, what's the link to my images again? So I can post this like annual thing. I like that. And that needs to happen as well. I like that, but it's different than sitting with it. And so you make your proclamation. There's so many different stories that people have posted. Tell your story and then make your client the hero. And that post, depending on how long you've been doing this, people come out of the woodworks of like past clients, people that follow you that you didn't even photograph their wedding, or family that they don't have an album, but the words connected in some way that they want an album. And I've had so many people just do that post that have been doing it for 5 years. And all of a sudden they have 19 album orders. And they're like, Shaun, what do I do next? I'm freaking out here because I don't know the next step. I'm like, I got you. Like, I will show you how to do these things.
Yeah.
So that's like step one. Step two is like making this post. And step three would be like, let's get you some samples. Let's figure out the pricing and things like that. We have all the tools to do that. That's where so many people want to start, but that is exhausting for a creative to go into numbers. Still for me, I'm like, I start my day on Mondays with finance and I'm like caffeine has to be loaded for me to want to be on that call. Because when you're looking at a profit and loss sheet of a company that I never thought I would have a company this size, I'm like, oh, you're killing me. Like, can't we talk about music or something fun? Not numbers all the time, like, yeah, please make this creative. But we can talk about those things and we will build that in, what's the book? Atomic Habits. He says, we don't rise to the level of our success. We fall to the level of our systems. And systems and creatives like me are not so bueno, usually. Up until now. That's terms I use. So when we have a system that we can sit it on, then our skills go through the roof because it's sitting on this stable. There's efficiencies. There are these, like, it keeps track of things so that things aren't falling through the cracks. And it's a system that we get to build together. We just don't start there because systems are not fun for photographers typically. Some are, but creatives and business, the starving artist is still a saying for a reason. Not all of them. I understand I'm putting some in a box, but like uber creative people, if they stay in the music or in the artistry or in the photography, they love it. When we used to do these little get-togethers, we called them the Get Simple something. And when we were like, our attorney's coming, he's going to show you how to write a contract. We're going to show you how to do pricing. And Shaun's going to show you how to wow your clients. They're like, we're not coming, even if it's free. We were like, oh, but there's a photo shoot. We'd have a line out the door if there was a photo shoot. I was like, please help me. Mm-hmm. You are a good enough photographer, but you want to come for a photo shoot. I now understand it, but I was like, let's creatively figure out a way, because you need a contract as well. Please have a contract. Please understand your pricing so you're not giving away the farm, and you can make, like we would break down people's packages. And they're like, I sold one for $7,500. I was like, great, let's break it down. They were making like $4 an hour. I was like, just go do it for free. Go get a job at Starbucks. You're going to get free coffee and like some insurance.
You'll come out ahead.
You're way better. Yeah. So I love it, but those are a few steps that you can start with.
I love that. What I know, so I'm looking at the clock right now. I know, Erin, you got to get going to get the kiddo. I feel like this is a good point for you to leave, and I will ask Shaun the next question about speaking and those. And so, Erin, you can listen in later.
Yeah, and I don't want to like throw the interview off. I am enjoying this so much, and I just want to say, our favorite episodes have been interviews, just to get to meet so many awesome people, and you are right up there with all of our favorites. That it's not the skill, it's not photography necessarily that has you in that seat today, right? Like that's what got you here. But the reason that we're all still here and that we want to be here and that we want to help our listeners and all of that is because we have a love of people. And I see that in you so much. And I love everything that you've said has been not like, I'm going to teach you a skill today. It's going to be, I'm going to help you serve your clients, which I guess is a skill, but not a technical thing. I need you in my ear in the mornings. So if you want to create a podcast that's like 5 minutes of Shaun in the mornings for that photographer's talk, I would listen. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry that I have to dart out. But I'll give it a listen when this one airs.
No, there we go. I love it, Erin.
Okay, guys. Thank you. See you.
Bye, Erin. Okay, so Shaun, next week you are speaking at the Lens and Light Photo Summit. So what are you talking about for that next week? And by the time this airs, it'll already have happened. But what is your plan for talking for this coming one?
Yeah, so for the last 2 years, I wanted to move into keynote speaking and not do the breakouts with albums and business and stuff like that. And so I was really trying to work on mindset, and I loved it. It was wonderful, and I will get back to it, and I still do it some. Next week, I've been kind of like called back to this place of like, we need you to teach albums like it's a keynote, because it is business and there's a lot to it. And we need some like inspiration so we can get through the times when we're doing pricing and it's not easy. And so I actually have 90 minutes, which isn't always like, that's a lot of time, and it's like barely enough. Because what I will do is I will do my like 30-minute version of like, here's how to do it. And then I'm going to do 30 minutes of live coaching somebody in front of everybody, and they don't know who it is yet. I've not picked the person. And then the last 30 minutes will be me coaching the group. And so the questions in it, they call it Q&A, but I call it like, no, I'm going to coach you as well and call you up to this place and try and get commitments from people because I ask, if you could serve every client with an album, would you want to? And if not, no big deal, but let me know. Everyone says yes or maybe. The maybes are, I've tried it and my clients don't like respond. They can't afford it, or I'm not a good salesperson or something. Those are the maybes, but I still haven't got a no. And if I get a no, I'm like super excited, because like, let's get curious and get down to the root of this, because as a photographer, that's what we want to do. And so I start there. And then by the time I get to the end and I show them all the things, I'm like, are you still in? Because it's a lot. Are you still in? And they're committed because we've shifted the mind. We've shifted the mind. There's fears, and they will still be there, but fear is going to keep us from more than failure ever will. Like, let's just fail together some. Let's just start. Let's get going. And we are going to do our best to create a system as we do this to support this so that we don't let your clients down. Money gets involved with a relationship. It causes a lot more of this like really focused in thing that we're like, okay, I don't know if I trust you now that money's on the line. Now there's an actual physical value to it. So we work through a lot of that, and I support them really strongly as we do it. And I'm like, if you're in a consultation and you're struggling and you've done something, literally call me. And hopefully I will answer. I get it. I can't answer all the calls, but like I will respond to you very quickly, especially there's just not as many emergencies as I thought. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, so everything's an emergency until you get kind of healthy and you realize not everything's an emergency. Yeah. Hardly anything's an emergency. Like for me to put do not disturb on was very difficult. Now my phone's on to do not disturb all the time. And there's like 2 people that can get through to me, you know? Yeah. And it's just not an emergency. And we will, what if it's not a problem? What if it's just feedback? And so I talk them through all of that. What if everything is feedback? You're like, but this client is mad. I'm like, they're just giving you feedback. We have no idea what's going on in their life. You may have let them down. You can learn from it. And my goal is not to have you learn on your clients. We will do enough work before that. You will learn some things, but not at a failure or somebody upset with you. Like I've been through lawsuits. I have had a couple of people sue me, and it's not fun. I'm not saying that like that's not as scary. This is an album. We're going to get through it, you know? And so what is more important is like, make sure your images are backed up. Like that's where you're going to get sued. Over an album, we may let somebody down or not tell them the pricing at the right time or something. We will work through that. They're not going to sue you over that. Yeah. Make sure you know where their images are, and we will make it up to them. Like we will get it figured out. And so I get to talk on albums, and I'm super excited because it is this keynote / album talk, because my call to action is like, and let's continue to do this because we cannot do this in 90 minutes. But in the future, let's take these steps. I have a roadmap for you, and let's take the steps together. And where you get hung up, you go do the homework, then come back and let's talk about it, you know? So my call to action is like, book a call with me, come to office hour. We do office hour every Thursday at noon on Kissbook Social on Facebook. So we can just talk behind the curtain. And that way, like clients aren't in there because we're talking pricing and all this stuff. So I love getting to talk about albums, but there was a season in there where I was like, I love keynotes. Can I talk about like the story of elephants and the story of rivers and all these like wonderful inspirational things? And people are like, I feel better, Shaun, but I have a business to run, and I hired you to talk about albums, and you're talking about like why my mind works the way it does, you know? So I'm excited. I'm going to be at Lens and Light next week, and I'm super excited.
I love that. So, and I know you're going to speak at a few more. So can you tell our listeners what other ones they can find you at this year?
Yeah. So I will be at Reset. That one is like a signed contract hybrid. And I started talking again, and these are places I've spoken in the past, but now that I'm doing albums, like I'm coming back. So hybrid, I don't have a signed contract, and Julie's going through some stuff, but I should be at hybrid. I will be at Evolve. So Reset's in Michigan, hybrid is in Texas, Evolve's in Santa Barbara, and then I'll be at Chard's workshop. That's a smaller one of like 15 photographers, and that's in Orange County. And so that's like the next couple of months. This is the heavy speaking season, is beginning of the year, and then summer everyone's shooting and stuff, so there's not as many speaking events. But yeah, I'll be kind of like all over the country, and I'm looking forward to it.
I love it. I'll make sure that we get links to all those conferences too. That way, if any of you out there listening and want to go see Shaun in person, then you've got the opportunity to. Like, I just imagine, like, I mean, obviously, like we're making things work on Zoom, but if we could be in person, I feel like it would be, you know, there's just something, I don't know, so magical about seeing somebody in person speaking and getting, you know, the full experience.
Yeah, there's nothing like in person. I love it. It is my favorite, but I'm grateful for Zoom and stuff like that as well.
It makes this possible. I mean, that's the thing. We're all in different places, and we're making this happen despite, you know, all of the other things we all have going on. But, you know, so just to kind of wrap it up, because I know that we only have a couple minutes left here, speaking of things we all have to get to for our businesses. But Shaun, one of the questions we ask everybody we interview and we talk a lot about is looking back, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently in your career?
Yeah, that's a big one. And ultimately, it's like what I've learned, and I'm still learning, is like the word should, the word have to, or the phrase have to. Those are ones that come up a lot in entrepreneurship. And so if I should be at a certain place, if I have to go do that thing, it's very different than if I get to do that. And I'm committed to. Versus I should already be somewhere. I tend to, and a lot of people do, but not everybody does. We go to a shame. I go to shame in the shoulds. So one of my rules is don't should on yourself and don't should on other people. It is one of these things.
I like that.
That's so good.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know where I heard it, but it's not mine, but I love it.
That's
and it's
fantastic.
like, when I hear the word should, I'm like, okay, what is it that we should be doing? Like, cause ultimately, having a little bit of grace and realizing, yeah, I want to change things. That is big enough just by itself. I want to implement albums is different than, or I'm committed to implementing albums versus I should already be doing albums. It's so hard on yourself. Yep. And we have a lot of stuff to deal with. Like the way the brain works and the way the creative and the brain do not go together. There's a creative side of the brain, but the brain's trying to keep us alive and comfortable, and creativity is pushing the limits and trying to make light do a certain thing so that we get the exact photo or music or writing or painting. And yet we don't, up until now, don't have a lot of grace for myself when I use the word should. Because there's nowhere you should be except for right where your feet are, and be present. That will be a gift. And if I could go back and tell myself something, be like, be right where your feet are. Don't shit on yourself and commit to, and then just create a plan to show up for yourself regularly. If you are the difference between me and who I want to be is typically just a little bit of discipline and consistency. When I do those things, I will move towards that person that I want to become. There's nowhere else I should be than where I currently am, and I'm here for a reason. So having that grace, not to just kick my feet up and sit on the couch and be super comfortable, that's not going anywhere. I get that. That's overly comfortable. I'm committed to making an impact through my business, through my creativity, through my titles as like parent and spouse and partner and friend and son. Yet who I am is what I'm committed to becoming. I'm going to be more kind as a son. And there's nothing I should do. There's not. Yet, it's so easy to say, like, I should be. Yep. I should be there. I should be further along. Have a little bit of grace, commit to it, make a plan, and start showing up consistently, and you'll see your life change. That's what I would tell myself a few years ago.
Oh, I love that so much. I feel like just about I feel like I could use that right now too. Like,
oh, I know. Yeah. I mean, even as we're, even like with this podcast, I'm thinking about that mindset where I'm like, oh, we should be doing X, Y, or Z for the podcast, but rather than like we're committing to doing that. And I really love this interview and getting to chat with you because it's so full of a grace and compassion for people, photographers that may not have it all together. And I think what I've noticed over the 18 years I've been in the industry is there can be this attitude for people who've been in the industry for a while. If someone's starting out and they're not doing things the way they think they should be doing it, there can be a lot of shame put on them. And we can't grow if we're stuck in that, always in that, I should be doing this. I should be charging more, or I should be whatever. We all start somewhere. And when you start in that, like, I'm committing to, I just really like how you said that. I'm committing to do this. I'm not going to stay here. I'm not going to charge $50 a session forever, but we all have to start somewhere. So rather than saying, I should be charging more, you're committing and you're deciding to make those changes. And so I just think it's such a great message. And I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. That was awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It means a lot. And I love being able to be in a space where I can speak freely on like the tougher things, because I can sit here and tell you all the things you can do for your business to take it to that next level. The difference between you and a more successful version of you is just showing up differently. And but like knowing that where you're headed, it matters. But knowing where you are, if you don't know where you are, it's really hard to get to where you want to go. And so we do some of that work so that we're supported along the way. And you said it in such a great way, because there isn't any, like, tell me what age and what dollar amount and what personality I'm supposed to have fully arrived. Like, it's just not going to happen. There's nowhere or no one we should be except for who we are right now. And then who do we want to become? That's how we can just become a little bit better than we were yesterday. It's so easy to compare, especially in photography, with styles and all these things. But like, what about you? And who do you want to be? And be super unique. I'm totally down with that. Have fun doing it and make an impact. And I'm on board. Like, let's go.
I love that. Oh, this has been such a good interview. Thank you so much, Shaun. We will make sure we put all of the links to where to find you in all of our notes descriptions for YouTube and Spotify and Apple and all those ones, so that people can just click there and find you where you are. So thank you, everybody, for coming in to watch us again. Please like and subscribe, and feel free to share this with all your photographer friends who you know would be totally impacted by what Shaun was talking about today. So thank you, everybody, and we will see you next week on another episode of The Edit. And scene. Okay, done. Yay!